moment. But Lachlan Sandbrook, hashtag Andre, thank you for joining us, mate. Last second call up, 4:04 p.m. So thank you very much, mate. Welcome.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Nathan.
All right, mate. Well, we'll bring you in a moment. But ladies and gents, you are in for a treat. So we'll bring in Mr. Entrepreneur himself, Mr. Eric Collins. Mate, thanks for joining us in the hot seat tonight.
No, pleasure, mate. Mr. Entrepreneur, that's a new one. It's not the worst thing I've been called. So
let's start. What's the worst thing you've been called then? I'm sure there was some sort of innocent,
I was going to say with or without profanities. It depends. But I mean, being in business, you cop a bit of shit, especially from competitors, which is always fun. So
gotcha. Well, if the competitors aren't going at you, you're not doing anything right. But mate, for those that haven't yet crossed paths with yourself, Eric, give us a little bit of a rundown of who it is you help, how you help them, and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I suppose my background, I'm a lawyer by trade. So I graduated from high school and didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to go into business, but didn't really have any idea on what that looked like, and decided to go and study a double degree of law and business when I was at school because I wanted a challenge. So went through law school, started working in the legal sector of a national company here in Australia, and figured out very quickly that I did not want to be a lawyer. So I suppose I started my first business with two business partners when I was 22, which was a marketing and sales company for the education sector. That was a huge success and a cataclysmic failure at the same time. We blew up, went from $0 revenue to we were pushing 6 figures a month by a third month, and then the education sector had some very interesting legislative changes and basically froze. I think it was like $500 million worth of funds overnight. And so our business model went from great to terrible and scary very quickly. So that was my first business, and we one part of that had been sold off, and then the other part of that we basically just wound down. And then I disappeared to Europe for 6 months as part of my law degree. Went and lived in Denmark and had a lot of time to think and a lot of European beer to drink, and came back to Australia and was thinking about what I wanted the next chapter to be about. And I always say I learned more in the first 3 weeks of running my own business than I did in 3 years of business school, which I know a lot of people working with entrepreneurs can definitely relate to. Mm-hmm. So I went into business consulting and, started off in the sales room, just grinding it out, making sales, eventually got on stage, started supporting other business owners, first in the space of sales, then moving into strategic planning and doing some mindset stuff, working with leaders, building teams. And then I resigned last year and I retired, did a little bitty retirement, which was good fun. So I was supposed to sit on my ass and do nothing for 6 months. It took about probably 6 weeks for me to get bored with that. So went over to Europe for a couple of weeks with my partner and came back, and I think that's just around about the time that you and I met, Nathan, with a 6-month COO contract I was doing with a HDD company and getting his ship, nice and straight and correcting a few things. And now working with a partner, Sean Sewell, with the Inner Circle, where we support business owners to grow and get the outcomes that they want from business rather than be trapped in their business. And that's me in a nutshell.
I love that, mate. And it's a pretty common, narrative, anyone that's had a scratch the surface of any sort of business consultancy or strategy or whatnot, the idea of working in your business as opposed to on your business. So let's touch a little bit on the Inner Circle, seeing as we're there now, mate. Is that what you guys essentially help business owners, dive into, the idea of working on their business?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a closed community. I mean, one of the things I've known Sean for 6 or so years now, and one of the things that we observed was a lot of business owners, they spend their whole day, they're solving everyone else's problem, they're responding to everyone else's crisis, they're constantly helping, and they don't really have anyone to help them. And getting business advice from your uncle down the road that's been an employee for his entire life is not the wisest business strategy. So the Inner Circle is a private community of business owners that we support. we do a lot of business work and strategy and execution, but also a lot of personal work, because from my experience, if you want the business to grow, you need to grow as a person. And if the business has stopped growing, usually there's a couple of lessons for the business owner to learn that they haven't quite cracked yet. So I'm a mentor to 80 or so businesses at the moment, and we're looking to build that model up a little bit. We're capping it at 100, and then we've got some other really cool stuff in the pipe that we want to get out and just support. I think a lot of business owners, I think a lot of people in general, kind of can fall through life responding to the things that happen rather than consciously and deliberately building, the business that they want, the family that they want, the life that they want. It's hard. Being in business is draining.
How you touched on it a minute ago, mate. Mindframe, having the right mindset, especially in business, I guess. Do you see any consistencies across the people that you tend to help day to day?
Yeah, definitely. I think an easy one is just how people make decisions. A lot of people aren't aware of their own decision-making process, and as a business owner, you can make hundreds or thousands of decisions a day, and if you aren't clear on your value structure, your direction, and where you're going, we spoke a little bit about planning and goals before. If you're just going through the motions and making decisions based on the micro and never stopping to look at the macro, you're just going to, bounce from wall to wall, but never really get anywhere. And I suppose there's heaps of things, lots of, sounds like a bit of a bumper sticker, but limiting beliefs on, not feeling worthy of running a successful business, or, achieving the things that they want to achieve. Or that was one of my big lessons a year or two ago, was, thinking that the business would, some level of success in business would give me something that I, couldn't otherwise feel.
Dre, you had a question, mate?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the consistencies for business owners, because I guess from your perspective, and this is an outside view of somebody who's looking in with no sort of background, I imagine, and I'm trying to, I guess, empathize with these business owners. I imagine it's quite difficult for them to honestly ask for help or put their hand up to hand the success and, I guess, the future of their business over to somebody else, especially when they've toiled and worked hard. Mm-hmm. What sort of I guess methods or constant successes do you have to kind of get them to see that bigger picture? And is there a specific type of business owner that tends to lean towards asking for help, as opposed to people who are often closed up and will go down with the ship, like the two sides of the coin there?
Yeah, my first rule is I don't work with someone unless they want help. Like I've had, especially being a salesman, for supporting people to come and get support, whether it's coming to events or, keynote speeches or whatever it might be. I learned very quickly that I've only got a very limited amount of time on this planet, and I'm not going to waste it with someone that, thinks that they've got all the solutions. Like, everyone's on their own journey, and I think that's important to respect. So my first thing is, like, I don't, if you reckon you've got it, or you love pumping 18-hour days, 6 days a week, and not seeing your kids, well, then all the power to you. Like, that's awesome. It's not my idea of success, but yeah, that's the first thing. And I suppose the other thing would be, it's not so much the type of business owner, it's the type of person. Typically growth is a high value. Typically they're curious. Typically they'll have a thread of curiosity that's passed through their life in all the things that they've done. I think when you seek something, you'll attract the opportunities to act on that. Whether or not you're ready to act on it is a totally different question. But that's my big thing. I'm not interested in trying to push someone up a hill, because I can't do the work for anyone. I think there's a lot of people that will spout out, oh, if you do these 6 things, or if you tick this 5-box checklist, or if you do whatever, then you'll be successful. It's like, nah, man, you gotta write your own ticket.
Yeah, I guess it's important, because it's one of those questions. I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of business owners is taking that first step and realizing they need help and reaching out for it. I think it's all fine and well if you look out the window and keep going straight, but it takes a real brave man, in my opinion, to really step out of his comfort zone and head down that direction. Is there often a business owner or a director that you've met that the decision to, reach for help has come off the back of either a consequence of one of their decisions or a change in the market? Or are they just often younger business owners that, can see the mistakes of their predecessors and know where the pitfalls happen for businesses that paved the way for them, and they're just trying to navigate the ocean of, the troubles of growing a business in the 2020?
Yeah, see, it's interesting that you say younger business owners, because the pattern that I see, at least, is most business owners that reach out for help, like very rarely will someone reach out for help from the get-go. Most business owners don't reach out until they've made a certain level of fuck ups, because like that's just how we learn, and that's just how we figure it out. But definitely, there's, like I said, there's usually a thread of curiosity or growth or always wanting to do better. I was literally having a conversation with one of my clients today, who's in finance. She's a woman in business, very successful. She's actually running 2 businesses, and she was talking about how she feels a little bit out of her depth running this second business, because she's brought in a salesperson that has way more sales experience than her.
Mm.
And I was just talking about how, well, you don't need to be the best salesperson in your business. In fact, you don't want to be the best salesperson in your business. Your role as a business owner is to find other people that are great at what they do, bring them in, give them an opportunity, find out what's important to them, and give them opportunities to attain that, and work towards a common goal. You don't need to have all the answers. And I think often it's the same traits that get people into business in the first place that are the traits that hold them back from actually getting what they want, because they're driven, they're ambitious, they never settle, they're critical of self. And for me, all of those traits, it's not about good or bad. It's about, are those traits showing up in a constructive or a destructive way? If they're manifesting in a destructive way, they won't ask for help. They do the late hours, they sacrifice time with the family and all of that. And some of that's relevant in business, like you just have to go through it. But for me, it's about looking at, well, if you have high standards, that can manifest in a destructive way of you ripping your team apart every time they forget to put a full stop on a sentence on an email.
Yeah.
Or that can manifest in a constructive way, and you can put a template together or an SOP for external communications so that standard is constantly met. It's not about good or bad. It's just about, is it showing up in a constructive or a destructive way?
Do you see, you touched on standards and I guess personality traits, all that kind of stuff. I lent pretty naturally then into the idea of people setting either unfair expectations on their staff. It's kind of two sides of the same coin. So either people are a little bit hesitant in seeking out superstars for their business because they don't want to be outshone for a number of reasons. And then the other side of the coin is, are other people's expectations far too high for their own staff? So same question in 2 different lights there, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen, first off, it just comes down to leadership, right? And you have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead someone else. I think there's a lot of people in my age demographic and also younger coming into the workforce that, if they've been in a business and they're not the CEO by 18 months, they want to quit and go work somewhere else because they don't understand why. Why hasn't someone offered them a position on the board yet? Because you have a degree in freaking interpretive dance. So I think there's definitely something to be said for, being an employee in a business, doing the hard work and earning your stripes, and being the employer in that situation, looking for people that have the same values as you and demonstrate a good work ethic. But I don't know. I think ultimately it just comes back to, I don't want to put my expectations on someone. Like, because again, if I own the business, no one's ever going to work as hard in that business as me. Like that's just the reality. It's not their business. They shouldn't work as hard as me.
Yeah.
But if I put my expectations on them, they're never going to meet them, and they're going to end up getting bitter, resentful, pouring Coke on the computers and walking out. If I put their expectations on them, at least then I can stretch them and encourage them to push harder. and it's that constant battle between, the business owner wants to do everything yesterday. The employee is sitting there going, well, I'm the one that's going to do the work, and there's no fucking way I can do that in 2 weeks. I need 3 weeks at a minimum. And then you go, cool, all right, well, I'll give you this, this, and that. You put in a lot of work and we'll get it done in 2.5. Like, that's actually a healthy tension. Again, that tension is neither good nor bad. It's just how that tension shows up. Again, is it being destructive and your team think you're a wanker for constantly pushing them and not appreciating them? Or is it constructive and they go, yeah, you know what? Nathan pushes me, but God damn it, when we finish that project, did I feel good?
Yeah.
Which is why I do a lot of work with our business owners around not just having a purpose and a mission and a strategic plan, but also having values for the culture. Because a business is just a group of people working in a common goal, towards a common goal.
How do you find delegation? Any consistencies there? I mean, yeah, I love it. But other business owners, when they first come to you, is that a quick, easy win? If you can shift that idea over, I guess, letting go, and accepting the idea that someone isn't going to hit it out of the park the same as they do, but that frees up their time to focus on more important things for the business.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I do with my business owners every 3 months is I take them through a strategic planning process. And one of the steps in that process is to acknowledge the wins that they've had, but also to look for the lessons and the insights that they've learned over the last 3 months. And delegation almost always comes up. I think a lot of business owners, they think about the most pressing thing that they have on them, and usually it's something to do with money, whether it's making sales or retaining clients or whatever it might be, and they think that that's what they need to delegate first. And my approach is, well, let's actually approach it from let's make it easy for you. It doesn't have to be hard. Let's delegate the most minuscule, inconsequential, petty task that you have to do. And let's because it's a muscle, right? Like, delegation is no different to anything else. It's a muscle. So why would you walk into the gym and all of a sudden go over to the bench press and try and rack the 50s? Like, it's not going to happen. You're going to hurt yourself. And then you're going to tell yourself, oh, I don't know how to bench press. So you're just going to stay away from it. And businesses do the same with delegation. So I think it's about setting yourself up to get a win and make it easy for yourself and build the muscle. Delegate the teeny tiny task, and then work your way up to things that involve revenue or other team or whatever it might be.
Mate, I'll let you jump in a minute, Dre. You had a question earlier about culture, but let's touch on systems, process, all that kind of stuff. I don't have a great understanding of business processes, but I just know they're important. So,
really.
Yeah, mate. So what do you find, I guess, whether it be consistencies or, do a lot of people miss the mark or not realize the importance of having systems and processes in their business?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, a lot of business owners, they have systems and processes, but they're all in their head. And that's not good to anyone. So, my analogy is always, if you packed up your bags, went to Tahiti for 3 months and just sat on the beach sipping Mai Tais, would the business go down the hole? Would it stay the way that it is, or would it actually improve with you away? And, systems and processes are critical. I mean, especially with tech nowadays, like, I'm literally in the process of working with, I thought it was going to be just a systems administrator that could, plug a few pieces of software together and, automate a few things in our business. And in the last, 6 weeks, it's gone from me thinking it would be one role to we're working with a systems architect to actually look at all of the workflows in our business and streamline them and get them efficient. We need to get them all out on paper first. We're going to get a systems architect that's what he does. He streamlines.
Yep.
Once we've done that, we're then going to engage someone that's a specialist in tech automation to work with, right now we've got 20 something pieces of software that we use for everything from invoices and sending out digital contracts to, a CRM and, Active Campaign for automated emails and a bunch of other stuff. Look, okay, you're currently using 20 plus. We can use these 6, and that will do everything that you need based on the refined, streamlined systems that you've just given me. And then we've got another company that specializes in doing dev work, basically, to actually be in the trenches and build that system out, build the automation, fill it up with everything. And then we need a project manager to facilitate that entire process. So yeah, I mean, like a system, like I underestimated how big a job that getting the systems and the processes correctly in our business would take. And we're not a particularly complicated business, although we do have very high standards. But if you're in a business and you don't have any systems and processes, a lot of business owners assume that they need to be the one to make them. But my approach is, well, and it's not a particularly mind-snapping approach. It's like, we'll get the person that does the job or fulfills that role and is going to be doing that system to write the SOP. Because you can sit there in your office for 6 months and write down every little system and process in this massive handbook, and then it sits there on the shelf for 3 years and gathers dust until something goes wrong and you go, oh, we need to work on our systems and processes. Which comes back to delegation, right? Like, be comfortable getting other people to at least be involved. I was suggesting that to one of my clients a couple of weeks ago. I said, well, why don't you just get them to write it? They can bring it to you and you can just proof it. That'll take your involvement from 100% to like 15%. And what can you do with that time that will produce more revenue for the company?
It's a safe assumption in my mind to assume that by essentially getting these processes and systems in place, it allows the business to scale quite quickly, especially if it's I myself work in a tech business, and a lot of the stuff we do is automated to a high degree. Yeah. The ability to literally scale to double the company size in the matter of about 8 months is heavily skewed to the fact that the systems and processes in place are constantly refining to be better, faster, smarter, cheaper. Like it's all about doing the little 1% across the board to make a huge impact on how quickly a business can pivot and grow, especially in a dynamic market like ours at the moment. There was something I wanted to touch on in culture. Culture is a huge aspect of why I choose the companies that I want to work for in my professional career. I think that at the end of the day, the culture is what I look for first and foremost before I explore the avenues on what the company can offer. It might be interesting, but I was in a unique position at the company I work for, phsyics plant, where I was able to witness vast change in a short period of time. And it came in the same sort of process of bringing in outside help to refine the business in a short period of time and bring it into the next level. In your experience, how do you go about, approaching a company with a really negative culture, and how do you go about implementing those sort of changes from the top down? So I imagine a company with a terrible culture is very difficult to grow and maintain. Is it something that you tackle quite actively first and foremost before you roll into other projects?
Yeah, straight off the bat. I mean, for me, working with the business owner, because I'm not typically, on the ground with the team. I've worked with different businesses and gone into their business and, done a planning day and done some work with the team and all of that. But realistically, the vast majority of the work that I do is with the business owner, and then they have to take it back to the team and implement, and I'll support them along the way. Culture's critical. It's everything. We spend, 80% of our time between the years of 20 to 60 at work. So, we spend so much of our time with these people. And as I said before, a perfect example of that, Dre, the people that are coming into the workforce now, they don't give a shit if you've got if you're a corporate or whatever. They want to be able to sit on beanbags and have Friday beers and, wear fucking Birkenstocks into the workplace as opposed to, leather shoes. Like it's really changing the way that businesses have to respond to and build an environment for their team. For me, it's critical. And there's a few ways that you build a really good culture, but it starts with the business owner actually acknowledging that you might be a fantastic accountant or, a great plumber or, a top-notch personal trainer. That doesn't mean that you're a great business person, and it doesn't mean that you're a great leader. And I think oftentimes people get into business because they're really good at what they do. They're usually shit employees. They don't take instructions very well. They've got lots of ideas and lots of energy. But, again, that doesn't mean that you're a fantastic leader or that you understand human psychology or that you're a great communicator. And so culture is really about building a framework that will allow the business to get from where it is to where you want it to be. I just think that's so important. And again, there's a few tools that you can use to build a really good culture. It's not rocket science.
Eric, what is let's dive down there, mate. What is your favorite tool? If you had to pick one, and you do.
No choice in this one.
Look, I mean, for me, I think I mentioned it before, but values for a company. Like, there's plenty of businesses that you walk into and they might have a mural, behind the customer service desk that has their company values, and it's, family and integrity and honesty and, customer service. But if you went in the back and you spoke to any of the team, you said, what are your company values? They'd go, I don't know. So creating values that are like the DNA of a company, because it becomes not just something that creates an environment that people want to be in, but from a business owner's perspective, it's also a leadership tool and it's a management tool. In a previous business that I was working in, one of our values was we practice open and honest communication. And if you walked around that office and talked to any team member, they would be able to say, what are some of your values? Oh, we practice open, honest communication. We do what we say we will do. We are family. And those values weren't just paint on the wall; they were visceral. If we saw someone, if I walked past one of my sales boys and they didn't have a very good call, I'd sit down and say, yeah, look, Dre, mate, just in the name of open and honest communication, I just want to give you a little bit of feedback because I heard the end of that call and, I wanted to give you some pointers on how you could do it better. When you really get values to the point where they are lived and breathed and you can hear them in conversation with the team, it creates a glue that holds everyone together. And, also, I said before, like, as a leader, it's your responsibility. If the culture's shit, like if you don't want to turn up to your own business and you own the thing, how do you think your team members feel? So it's your responsibility as a leader. If the culture's shit, like that's on you. But also values gives you the perfect framework to select people that actually align with what you want to create. Because, the whole, I don't know what the saying is. It's like there's no bad students, only bad teachers. I fundamentally disagree with that. There are some fucking terrible students out there. I could be the best teacher in the world, but if you have no interest in learning what I want to teach you, that's not a reflection on me. That's a reflection on you. So, I always start with the business owner. I look at the purpose. I look at the mission. What's the business trying to achieve? Why does the business exist? What's the values of the company? What actually holds everyone together? And they've got to be, practical, like a value of integrity. Well, integrity to you might mean always being honest and, communicating up front. Integrity to me might mean skimming $50 from the register as opposed to $100.
Yeah.
Like everyone's got a different idea. So they have to be practical and you've got to be able to use them in a sentence. But after that, once you've gotten that in and really entrenched it, supported team, 90% of team, you'll see a 30% increase in their performance straight away. Because they actually go, oh, wow, this leader gives a shit about me. They give a shit about this workplace. They're not going to tolerate, things that are out of line. But then it also gives you a framework to sit someone down and say, hey, Johnny, mate, our values are we do what we say we will do. You haven't hit your sales target for 3 months in a row. Our values are, we have each other's back. And I heard you were talking shit about one of the team members, at the water cooler. Mate, are you really a fit for this business? So it doesn't just help you retain great team, it helps you eject the shit students.
It ties into culture as well, mate, you touched on, but what's your take on, I've always found it interesting, and I'm just wondering if you've got any idea on if there's a practical approach that would work, a bit of a blanket approach around the idea of hiring and firing for a business. It's obviously a sensitive one to a degree, but it definitely ties into obviously culture, but also having the ability to scale and obviously retain some of your more positive influences in a business.
Do you have someone that you want to fire? You want a few pointers on, or?
Well,
I'm sweating nervously. You
I
just
was going
can't
to
see it.
say, Dre, start to shake, mate. Is this an intervention?
no, this I just said to Dre, there's no interview process. You get on tonight, you get one shot, and that's it. So he's done all right.
I was wondering why the calendar didn't say invite to stream. It was exit interview.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've hired plenty of people. I've fired plenty of people. It's tough. Like, I almost vomited the first person that I had to fire. I literally was sitting in the meeting, thinking the only thing that would make this guy losing his job worse is him losing his job of being covered in vomit. So like, it's tough because it's it's a human being that you're dealing with ultimately. But I think it's also really important to remember that business is a commercial transaction. You show up, you do a role, I give you money, we give each other a high five, and we go home at the end of the day. So I think I don't necessarily have a blanket rule, but certainly having things like a mission and a purpose and values really clearly defined and having them be, visceral in the business is really important, because you see whether or not someone's a fit. And some people are just great interviewers. Like, some people, you interview them and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You get them in their first week, they blow your socks off. Second week, it's like, yeah, they're awesome. Third week, it's like, where's the chick that I interviewed? Like, what, what happened to that person? And I suppose in that situation, it's a few things. First off, just being honest and just saying it how it is. Obviously in Australia, we've got pretty significant employee protections. So it's not like in the movies where people just walk up, you're fired, and out they go, unless you want to cop an unfair dismissal claim. But I've found it's really helpful to, which is something that I learned from sales, because sales is just psychology and communication. That's all it is, driven towards a specific outcome. Was asking people questions. Like I said before, Dre, mate, one of our values is we do what we say we will do. I'm noticing that, you've been here for 5 months and you haven't once hit your sales target, even though in the interview you told me that you were a sales pro that could sell ice to Eskimos. I'm just wondering, how do you think you're going? Which was a question that one of my mentors gave me quite a few years ago, and it's an absolute cracker. How do you think you're going? If they have an ounce of integrity, they'll say, oh, probably not very good. And if they're full of shit, they say, oh, yeah, I think I'm crushing it. The leads are terrible, but, I'm still for a salesman. And then you just say, yeah, that's interesting. Well, again, this is what I've observed. This is what I'm feeling. I could be way off the mark, but I feel like maybe you're not a good fit for this business. What do you think?
Yeah.
And again, if they've got an ounce of integrity, they'll say, yeah, look, I've never done sales before. I lied in my interview. Yeah. And again, I think there's very few things that honesty and rawness and realness can't solve. I think it's when we hide behind our mask and we try and project and be this macho leader that doesn't give a fuck and will just fire people straight off the bat, or the emotional leader that cares about everyone and wants to be everyone's best friend and doesn't make the tough calls because they don't want to be rejected. It's when we bring our own values in an unhealthy way as leaders in business that things get really messy really quickly.
Yeah, mate, you've obviously picked up a lot of skill sets from a lot of different people. Cast your mind back, mate. Who would you say your biggest influence or even influences have been so far at this point in your career?
Oof.
It's a great question.
That is a great question. I've had a lot. There's a woman by the name of Marie that is single-handedly one of the best salespeople I've ever experienced. She mentored me into sales when I had zero experience. She taught me a phenomenal amount about not just sales, but about people, about human behavior. She taught me how to be a good leader, but she also taught me how to respect and value myself, which I didn't when I first, I was one of those people that was wearing a mask and trying to be something that I wasn't. And, you know, she helped me. She didn't take the mask off for me. One of the things that she always says is you never give people the answer, because when you give them the answer, you make them weak. And that's always stuck with me. I remember a specific life situation that I had going on, and I asked her for some advice, and she just said, well, what do you think you should do? Just put it straight back on me. And, you know, I went away and I came back, asked her opinion, went away, came back. And we had a series of conversations over, God, it would have been at least 3, maybe 4 months. And I went out for a coffee and I said, right, you know, I just wanted to close the loop. This thing that we've been talking about, I did this, and that's what I've done. And she was like, yeah, good. You made the right choice. I was like, what? So that's what you would have done? And she was like, yeah, 100%. I said, well, why didn't you fucking tell me that 4 months ago? And she said, because when you give people the answer, you make them weak. It's your lesson to learn. It's not my deal. It's not my life. You need to make your own call. And if you'd made a different call, I would have said, well, look, this is what I would have done, but this is the decision you've made. So now you need to honor it. You know, and that was profound for me. Learning to trust myself and learning to, you know, build confidence. I think there's a lot of people that, you know, rent a sports car for a day and wear a blue jacket and have hashtag entrepreneur in their Instagram bio, and they think they're, you know, the next fucking billionaire on the scene.
Yeah.
I think people with real confidence and real certainty have an acute awareness of their shortcomings and their vulnerabilities, but they still do the things that they want to do anyway. And that's certainly something that I learned from her.
What do you prefer, mate? Did you prefer? Are you a subscriber of tripling down on your strengths or building up your weaknesses?
The old Gary V triple down.
Gary V triple down.
I love Gary. Gary's great.
Yeah, big fan.
I'm a fan of not boiling life down to a fucking tagline. That's what I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Like, I think in some situations you're in a rock and a hard place and you just need to fucking do it, especially in business, right? Like, you know, we hire someone to be a salesperson. We hire someone to be the customer service person. We hire someone to be the accountant. We hire someone to be the marketer. And then we go, fuck, I was doing all of those jobs, you know? So we have to be spread across multiple things when you're in business. That's just life.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks that, yeah, there's a huge validity in, you know, improve your weaknesses and all of that. And then another part of me sees the absolute validity of just going, I'm shit at that. I'm just going to delegate it. And it is what it is. I also see that as a massive vulnerability because things move so fast right now that you don't necessarily need to pro at it. But if you don't understand the concept of social media marketing, you're gone. You know, if you don't understand that the people that walk into your door looking for a job now don't want the same things as someone that walked in your door 20 years ago when they wanted a job. You don't understand that they talk 2 different languages and have 2 different sets of values. How are you going to build a team? You know, so I think growth is an imperative. I think where you choose to direct that growth is a personal choice. You know, I think it's whether you double down on your strengths or you double down on your weaknesses. As long as you double down on something, that's what's most important. You know.
Just touching, you mentioned a rock and a hard place, and sometimes I guess when we all find ourselves between a rock and a hard place, we reach for that one thing that motivates us to keep going. As a business owner, you're essentially growing something, and in a legal terms, which you'll be familiar with, a company is essentially its own entity. So in my mind, you're growing a living, breathing organism to become something that will be self-sustaining one day. Do you have any advice to the business owners that often find themselves struggling with the workload around finding motivation to keep going and work those long hours? Because I can imagine how frustrating it will be putting all your energy into something and it just not working out the way you wanted it to. It would be deflating and
very, very deflating and fatiguing. Yeah, I mean, I liken a lot of business owners to being on a treadmill, and the treadmill is it's not going slow enough for them to walk, but they're not running fast enough that they can actually get to the end and get off. And they're kind of doing this awkward, like hop, skip, jump, sprint, stop, sprint. And it's tough. I suppose, I don't know, if you're talking about tapping into drive, like there's a great book by Simon Sinek, starting with why, and he's done a lot of work into understanding the changes in human motivation and fundamental drivers. Like when I was in business school, I learned about Maslow's hierarchy. I've never once sat down in an interview and gone, right, so on level 3, we're talking about human satisfaction. And I don't even know what fucking Maslow's hierarchy is. To never fucking. But I think understanding what drives you is incredibly important. But the challenge is the process of actually figuring that out. And that's a process that I'm going through right now. Like when I started my first business and got a taste for it, I told myself a bunch of stories and planted some really deep seeds around how being successful was going to fill the void and make me feel happy. When I achieve X, Y, Z, then I feel ABC. Any sentence that you're telling yourself in your mind that says, at some point in the future, when I do something, I will feel something else, insert goal here, is a trap. Because, I'm not a fucking Buddhist, but there is nothing that you can feel in the future that you don't have access to feeling right now here in the present. I also think there's a lot of people that go into business because what they think they will get versus the reality is totally different. Like, and I'm not the first person to say that social media is emphasizing that to the nth degree, but people see people sitting on the couch and getting publicity and followers, and I made $100,000 today. Do you want to make $100,000? Well, then sign up for my program. Like, there's so much noise and there's so many people positioning themselves as expert. I was once at an event, and some lady stood up and she said, "Yeah, I've just started a business in the health and fitness industry, and I'm just wondering, from your perspective, like, what's 1 or 2 things that I could do on social media to really position myself as an expert?" And I wanted to grab the microphone and just said, "Be a fucking expert." That's how you position yourself. Yeah. Like, I think there's so much noise, so many people grabbing for our attention, that you can very easily get the sense that the answer is somewhere out there, not in here. And I think it just starts with stopping and looking yourself in the mirror and figuring out, what do I want from life? What's important to me? What makes me happy?
Understanding the why.
Yeah. And that's really challenging because as I was saying, when, 7 or 8 years ago, when I set myself some massive goals, I set myself a bunch of goals that I wanted to achieve by the time I was 30. And I had achieved all of them before I turned 25. And so I'm sitting there, and this was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, sitting there going, what now? Because every time I was achieving something, there was the moment before where I was like, oh, this is it. And then, the moment would flash and I'd have done it. And not 10 seconds later, I was like, yeah, that was awesome. But, what will really make me happy is when I do X, Y, Z. Like, I hadn't even finished it sometimes. I hadn't even achieved it when I started in sales, right? I was the worst salesman you'd ever seen. I was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Jittery. My voice was up and down. I didn't know how to ask any direct questions. I'd fucking waffle and waffle and waffle. I could talk underwater. And my goal was just make 1 sale a week. And I made a sale a week, and I was like, cool. But now what you want to do is make a sale every second day, like get some consistency. I did that. I was like, right, like the real goal, make a sale every day. You make a sale every day, you are fucking on fire. Made a sale every day, then it was 2. Made 2, then it was 4. Made 4, and then I wanted a 30 grand month. Make a 30 grand month, you want a 50 grand month. And that's human nature. That's who we are. We didn't invent airplanes and mobile phones because we were totally stoked sitting by a fire in a cave and eating raw meat. Like, that driver to constantly improve is a huge reason as to why we're here as a civilization. But it's also important to understand that if you're telling yourself that when I do something, then I'll feel something, it's a lie. It's a myth. And I think it's really important not to fall in the trap of looking out and saying, well, he's an expert in this, so he obviously knows something that I don't. There's heaps of people that know heaps of things that you don't. There's no question. But no one knows how to make you happy. And no one knows what makes you tick. That's your role to find out. And it's when you get to the point of doing that, which is the point that I'm at, and I'm literally going through this process right now, thinking about, what I want the next 10 years to be, because I know, it can't be attached to any level of business success. It can't be attached to anything external. But then I sit there and go, well, I have to do something. I can't just fucking sit here and be a couch potato for the rest of my life. It's this strange balance between playing the game of life and driving for things because the game is fucking fun, but also not falling into the trap of forgetting that you are playing a game, and ultimately you just have to go inside, figure it out, and don't expect an answer straight away.
You touched on.
Realize that was a very long-winded answer.
No, I love it.
I really enjoyed that answer. Actually, it had a lot of I guess internal monologuing while you were talking. Striking resemblance is the same sort of things that I've thought about. Obviously, nowhere near there, but it's good to know that I'm generally on the right track, and I guess I'm orientating myself in the right direction. And it's an excellent reference with that book. So I highly recommend it to anybody to read.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great book.
Dre, let's switch gears here, Dre. What you touched on? You're going through this a little bit yourself, mate. What you've got Eric here. What you got any questions of him around goal setting?
Well, goal setting was it's an interesting one. It's getting so goal setting was on my radar this quarter for a few reasons. I guess I was getting to an age where I've done enough things in my personal life that I was happy with to park for the meantime. I was my next focus was to kind of get the professional side of my I guess the next steps of my life sorted out. And one thing that I found is, even though doing really well at work, I sometimes found that like days where you just really struggled and there was nothing. I felt like there was nothing to grab onto, and you were just like, you're there, but you weren't there. So it reflected back on an article that I read in Forbes where the 3% highest, top 3% of Harvard's, I guess, most successful graduates all had the one thing in common, and it was based around they had written their goals down. So, reflecting on that, I started to plan about what my short-term and long-term goals would look like. And it's consumed quite a bit of time because it's something that when I'm set it, I will dive for it with everything I have. So the reason I'm asking questions around like motivation and goal setting is because it's something that I am in the process of setting myself, and just getting a perspective on, I guess, what makes a good goal and the outcome of what a goal should be is, I guess, a very valuable insight for me. So I've been eternally monologuing when you were going on talking about the why factor is asking myself why, and I'm running through the draft goals in my mind, and I'm literally asking myself why to each one of them, and eternally monologue. So that's kind of why that's kind of why I wanted to touch on it. So I found it very helpful. But so as for me,
what's your current goal? Current iteration or articulation of that goal?
So one of my long-term goals was actually to start my own charity, and it was off the back of my experience in my paramedics degree before moving across into sales. And it was it sounds a little silly, but I think it's a fantastic idea. It's essentially about, I've noticed that during all my placements as a paramedic, there was one thing that always bothered me and I always took home with me, was the state that our elderly live in nursing homes. And it's not, at least in the culture that I was raised in, we don't put our parents in homes, we look after them. Yeah. So after spending so much time in nursing homes and seeing the state they were living in, and it was it was like something that I took home with me and I thought a lot about. And I came up with this solution that one day I would really like to fulfill one day, is to bring a mode of, I guess, entertainment to the nursing industry that is low cost and easy to use for like elderly. And it was essentially video gaming. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of games for every personality type out there. Somebody has invented a game that you would enjoy playing. It's just a matter of bringing it to a nursing home, and it's low impact and it's brain stimulating, and it gives them the ability to interact with people around the world and strike up that social aspect that they've lost. That's a goal that I think one day I would really like to see fulfilled. But my I guess my short-term goal is I want to move into a role that helps. It's not going to be orientated around money. Like money will be a consequence of a successful business, but it's a business model around helping people, because I felt despite working 14-hour days and going to some pretty challenging scenes in my paramedics experience, the one thing that always got you through, and the one thing that I valued above everything, was, I guess, the gratitude around helping people. And it was the one thing that carried you through the long days. And it's something that I would like to carry with me into my professional career. So I'm in the process of establishing a goal that will allow me to help people, but still feel fulfilled. So that's where I am, and I'm paving that ladder on what that might look like through my sales career.
So my question would be, why haven't you started?
I've only really started my actual sales experience this year. So I did some sales back in my very early days. But
no, I mean, why haven't you started your foundation?
That motivation thing, I guess, comes back to it. It's one of those things that I need to take the leap. I really do. And I just haven't quite found it.
But I mean, I don't know. I'm putting my coaching hat on here, but
fire away.
I don't think you lack motivation. Like your eyes were like on fire when you were talking about that. And motivation isn't something that you feel and then you go and do something. You go and do something, and then the motivation fuels you to keep doing it. So if you really didn't have the motivation, the only way to find out is to start doing it. And it's the internal dialogue of, oh, I don't want to start something and fail and that holds so many people back from doing what they need to do. It's like, I love failing. Like, I go and do something, I don't like it. Like, no one's watching. Everyone's too busy watching themselves fail and judge themselves to worry about your shit. Like, believe it or not, you're actually important to other people, And if you really wanted to, you could have, like, if your goal is to get gaming into elderly homes and support them to have outlets and creativity and connection and all of that, which I think is profound, you could have that done by the end of the month. Go and approach 10 old people's homes, say, hey, I'm going to donate 2 PlayStation 4s and a Nintendo Wii. Go in there every day for a week, take a week of annual leave, go in there every day for a week, show them how to play the games. Job done. Like, so if that's your goal, are you aware of the fact that you could literally have fulfilled that vision in like 2 weeks' time if you really wanted to?
I guess no, I always thought it was, I think and I've been given this feedback at work, is sometimes you have preconceived conceptions about, I guess, limitations on businesses and clients and stuff. I guess I've subconsciously put them on myself, because I'm going out the gate thinking it's going to be a lot harder than the reality is it will be that simple. I'm here, here's what I want to do. Can I do it? And then there will be a nursing home out there to be like, yes, you can.
100%. So but I think that's also really interesting. Like, I would argue that the amount of time you've spent this year in 2020 thinking about what your goal should be, you could have achieved that in 5 different nursing homes if you'd put that time straight to just doing it.
Just to doing it, yeah.
What's the worst case scenario? Like, some old bloke breaks a controller, or some nursing home says, no, we think they're better off playing Mahjong.
If only they got to play Mahjong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's also really interesting. Like, it's so easy to fall into the trap of, which I'm 100% guilty of, just mental masturbation, thinking about what we should think about and planning what we should plan about, as opposed to saying, all right, well, I don't know what it looks like at the highest level, but what's a teeny tiny version of what that might look like that I can at least take some level of action towards and just see how it feels. Like, you could go and pick up a secondhand PlayStation 4, or get them a PlayStation, get them a fucking Nintendo 64 if you want to, although that'd probably be more expensive than a PlayStation.
Yeah. Have to blow on the cartridge every time it stops working.
Yeah. You could literally go and get a PlayStation and an Xbox, download 10 games, put it in there, spend a week showing them how to play it. Even if you got them things like Tetris or whatever, like something super, super simple, like a 16
very
game,
simple, yeah.
like that would cost you what, $1,000 and 40 hours of your time.
I like that the analogy you use is essentially it's and I'm reflecting on this myself. It's not about throwing a goal out there and trying to jump and reach it all in one stretch. It's I guess about doing a small step and just seeing how it feels, and then finding the motivation to take another step and the motivation to take a step after that. So it's like flipping the narrative of myself is, instead of setting this massive goal, I should wind it right back to something manageable, take the step, and then find the motivation.
100%. Well, because you also don't know what's on the other side of that, right? Like, so my best mate, I've been mates with since I was like 11 years old. 4 years ago, he entered this random business accelerator. He's a personal trainer by trade. He's phenomenal at what he does. He runs the F45 here in Hamilton. And he wanted to experiment in something totally different. So he went to a business accelerator, got accepted, and he had to create an app. And so he came up with a dating app called 26 Dates. So the idea was you and your partner would both download the app. You'd select dates that you liked. It would put them into a mixer, and then it would come up each week with a challenge. So each week on date night, you'd have to go and do a date based on a letter of the alphabet, complete the 26 dates. It's a challenge, social, all that stuff. Like, it was a nifty little idea. Like, fucking tanked terribly when he pitched it. But it was a great little idea. If he had put the judgment on himself that, oh, well, that idea was a failure, therefore I'm just going to stick to being a PT, he wouldn't have known what happened next. What happened next was he started teaching himself how to code. He then started playing around with bots and AI and automation in businesses. He then started contracting to businesses in the fitness space, taking what he knew and building bots and automation and creating a virtual personal trainer for multiple gyms in the city of Brisbane. He's then taken that and he's applied and been accepted for a master's of, cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, I think. And he wrote his resume in code like a fucking and he's now interviewing with the Australian Navy to go and be an intelligence officer. Now, whether or not he gets the job or not, whether or not he, flunks out of the masters or not, if I told him, oh, that app idea is shit, and he never applied for the accelerator and he just stuck to being a PT, all of those things wouldn't have happened. And so I think it takes a little bit of self-compassion to actually go, you know what, I like, because again, things move so fast nowadays. I have no idea what the next 7 or 10 years are going to look like, which is one thing that I'm doing with myself. As I said, trying to set a vision for the next 10 years. I'm starting with, well, where do I want to be in 6 months? Like, how can I make it, manageable? How do I make it snackable? And again, you might want to have, 1,000 gaming consoles in 500, retirement villages across the country. Why don't you just start with one here locally in Brisbane? Get them a PlayStation, another one, and then you go and do another one, and someone says, oh, gaming consoles actually don't really work because they don't have good mobility in their hands. But what's this VR thing? Do you reckon you could bring one of them in? And then you message Sony and they send you 10 VR kits for free, and then you do some social media, and then like, the best things unfold as you do them. They don't happen here. They happen out in the world when you actually act on them. So I would say to you, there's no reason you can't have launched your foundation, put $1,500 into it, and actually have old people playing GTA 5 like this. you know?
No, it's the perspective change has been quite an eye opener, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
It's kind of shattered the I guess you call it a glass ceiling. In my mind, and this kind of reflects back on me, and I think it reflects on a lot of young new business owners that are afraid to take that first step. Is that sometimes you just got to start with the little things and just take the initial leap, because I think the hardest part will be, once you get that first console in there and you get it working, it's going to be a very easy step to keep motivating yourself to do the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
And like I said, VR being the ultimate future there. Would you like to send your grandparents to Rome? Here's a VR kit. Here's 364K.
Now you're thinking about how could I, not can I, right? Because can I is binary. It's either yes or no. Like, what the fuck do you do with that? It's a 50-50 chance you're going to fail, right? And psychologically, the pain of a loss is, I can't remember what the study is, but there's like the pain of a loss to us, the way that we compute it, is 4 times greater than the sensation of a win. So we're much more pain averse than we are driven to do something that might potentially give us a little kick of dopamine. But now you're thinking in terms of like, yeah, well, I mean, I could do this and then I could do that and then it could lead to this and it could lead to that. Like, it's important that you're not just all head in the clouds and, ignorant of reality, but just giving yourself permission to go, how could I? Like, if I could, how would I do it? Okay, well, why don't I just do that? Just see what happens. Again, what's the worst case scenario? Some old codger breaks your headset and then you go, oh, well, that was fun. At least he got a good game out of it. He beat on Beat Saber. I guess that's worth something.
Mate, goodness gracious me. Those that are watching this on the replay, just scroll back about 18 and a half minutes. That was just pure fire. Eric just dropping the heat.
Yeah, well, this is what I get paid to do. So I would hope that I'm good at it. But, I think, like, and I appreciate you sharing, Dre, because I imagine there's, there's a little bit of a speaking something into reality is scary sometimes. But this is also the value. That's why I love this technology, right? Like, business owners, people in general, have access to so much. Like, if I want to learn pretty much anything, I can go on the internet and I can learn how to. The barrier to entry to do just about fucking anything is, for 99.9% of things in life, gone. If not gone, significantly reduced. And the issue isn't resources, and the issue isn't knowing how, right? Like, again, I was I was literally saying this to a client today. I used to, public speaking was a huge fear of mine. I was terrified. And as I said, I was the worst salesperson ever. I was a terrible public speaker. Like, I was not good. And I was saying to myself constantly, like, I don't know if I can, because it was binary. It was either, well, you can or you can't. And then I got a perspective change and I said, well, because I asked for help, I put my hand up. I said, I'm fucking shitting myself here. What do I do? And I got a perspective change to, okay, well, I'm capable of walking up onto a stage. I'm capable of uttering some noise, and I'm capable of walking off stage. So technically, I can public speak. The question is, how well can I public speak? Right? Because how well can I public speak? You can do something with that. There's room to improve. You might mess something up. Your goal next time is not to be so sweaty, or not to have so many awkward pauses, or not stumble, or not say or whatever. You can do something when it's a gradient, but when it's binary, it's just like it's you would think it's simpler, but it's harder for us to compute, because the risk is, we emphasize that so much greater than the potential reward. And I just think it's exactly the same, looking at it from a perspective of, okay, well, I might not be able to launch a multi-million-dollar foundation and bring joy to the lives of everyone over 78, but I can go down there and make sure Bob and Susan have an absolute cracker of an afternoon playing Tetris on a PlayStation. I'll start there.
Yeah.
It's not knowing how. Knowing how is very rarely the issue. It's you getting out of your own way and giving yourself permission to fail, fuck up, look like an idiot, make a mistake. It's just being human.
And shout out to Bob and Susan, where they love the show. Mate, here with one of my favorite questions. I can't even remember where I got this from. Maybe Tim Ferriss, maybe not, but
I love Tim.
oh yeah, big fan. So the question, in any case, is what's one thing you wish you knew before starting your business that you know now?
That you're allowed to fail. Yeah. That you can actually fuck up and it's not the end of everything. And that you don't have to know everything, which is a nice little segue on our conversation. You know, if I could go back to me, outside of cringing really badly, to my first business, yeah, I would just say, make a decision. I would also tell myself to trust myself. Trust that the skills and abilities that you have gotten you this far. And so there's a good chance they'll get you through the next leg of the race. You know, I think it's so easy to fall into analysis paralysis and doubt. I know it's easy for me, you know, and literally like we were just talking about, Dre, you know, like just make a decision. Any decision is better than a decision, because deciding not to decide is actually a decision. The only difference is nothing happens.
Yeah, you've already failed and you've done nothing.
Yeah, so better to fail and do something.
And it's so interesting. You touched on it earlier, mate. Just people really don't give a shit as much as we'd like to think that they do.
Yeah, we're so much less important to other people than we are. Well, because everyone's a character, right? Like, if you know 100 people really well, Nathan, there's 100 different versions of Nathan out there that are alive, because there's 100 different versions of you living in someone else's head. Right? And it can't ever be the true version of you, because no one can ever really understand us except for ourselves, not in every teeny tiny little crevice.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think it just takes awareness to go, okay, if I'm about to walk on stage and give a speech, right? And I'm sitting here going, oh, fuck, what if I mess up? What if I say something wrong? Well, I'm sitting here worrying about me. So chances are there's someone else in the crowd that's sitting there worrying that they, you know, shook hands awkwardly with the person next to them, and someone else is sitting next to going, oh fuck, is my dandruff showing on my shirt? And someone else is sitting next to them rerunning through an argument that they had with their partner the night before because they snore. And you know, everyone else is sitting there worrying about themselves, you know. And again, it takes, I think it's kindness. Like, it takes a huge amount of courage to take risks. Like, we're not designed to build businesses and change the world. We're designed to live long enough to have a couple of kids and then hopefully make sure that they live long enough to take care of themselves. Like, that's what we're designed for. So when you look at people that build businesses, run countries, launch organizations, you know, they're doing things that go against the natural programming, the DNA that has been instilled in them for tens of thousands of years. So it makes sense if you're scared or worried about messing up. And I think approaching that from a place of kindness rather than from a place of, you know, oh, Dre, you're so shit. Why can't you just launch the... See, Eric said you could have it done in a week. God, why didn't I think of that, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I think it's just approaching things from kindness and actually learning to back yourself. And, you know, again, instead of being one of those posers with hashtag entrepreneur in their Instagram bio, but never actually doing anything, never actually taking any risks, instead of like fake it till you make it, I fucking hate that saying. Don't fake anything. Like, I've stood on stage and said, yeah, hey guys, you know, thanks everyone for being here. This is actually, you know, I'm still new at this, and I really appreciate you all being here. Is everyone ready for a good time? You know, XYZ, and launch it into my speech. Like, I'm not going to walk up there and be like, oh, this is actually the 5,000th time that I've spoken, and I'm, you know, holding doing my power pyramid, and I've got my blue jacket on, and like, fuck that. Why would you want to fake anything? Because people respect real, and people can see it. You know, people have a way better read on you than what they think they do, at the same time as they actually don't give a fuck about you. You know, so I think it all, you know, again, it sounds like a bumper sticker, but it all starts within. You know, and I think if you can twist your reality to inspire you to do something, even if it's something tiny that no one else in the world knows about, but you do, that's enough.
Mm.
You know?
I want
Been
to.
quite an emotional journey, Nathan. I didn't know I was getting invited. It just kicked the walls down.
I've already forwarded Eric
Be
your
good.
email address, mate. You'll be forwarded an invoice very shortly.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. That's all right. I charge by.
Yeah, 20% off. Don't worry that. Mate rates.
Love a good mate's rate.
Yeah. Mate, actually, before I've got a handful of questions, I just want to get a little bit of, I guess, leverage your experience with a bit of practical advice. Dre, just quickly, mate, I want to thank you. You locked in for about 20 minutes and you've been here for an hour 20. Are you good to sit in for another 15, 20?
Nah, I'm keen to see this one through. This has been it's been quite a journey, so let's see it to the end.
Okay, thanks, mate.
Nice.
So, Eric, we'll go to the biggest and least, I guess. Let's start with in your experience and career so far. Have you got a pivotal moment that you've branded as maybe your biggest lesson thus far?
Oh, there's a lot. Biggest lesson in business, in life?
Whatever stands out for yourself. Because I trust your judgment.
One of my biggest lessons has been to be vulnerable. Yep. Not to fake it till you make it, not to pretend that you're impenetrable, not to act as if you know everything, to actually look yourself in the mirror, acknowledge what you're good at, acknowledge what you're shit at, and be vulnerable, to ask for help, put your hand up, go to other people that have more experience than you and say, hey, I think I'm fucking up here. Could you give me some advice? I think there's very few things that are out of reach if you're willing to acknowledge where you're at and get vulnerable.
Plus, people love to help, right?
They do. They do. Well, there's a great saying. I can't remember where I heard it, but this is when you deny the gift of receiving, you're also denying someone else the gift of giving. And I love that because it's so true. And especially in Australia, we do it all the time. You see mums fighting at coffee. I'll pay. No, I'll pay. No, I'll pay. No, I'll pay. Right? I love it. It's hilarious. But, you know, when someone tries to give you something, we have this internal monologue that says, you know, oh, no, you don't want to be seen as a taker or whatever. And you say no. And you're doing that because you think it's the right thing. But you're actually saying no to them and you're stopping them from feeling the gift of being a contributor, providing for people, shouting someone and showing that you care about them. So yeah, people love to give. People are good, man. People are good.
Yeah, yeah, mate. And the other side of the coin, rather that one. What have you chalked up as maybe your biggest win so far?
My biggest win so far? Speaking on stage to 1,000 people, that was a pretty big win. Flying around the world to do something that I love with people that, you know, I aligned with is a massive win. Honestly, it's going to sound really cheesy, but probably the biggest win for me has been going from a place where I didn't have a huge amount of confidence. I didn't have much self-respect. I didn't really, you know, like who I was or believe that I was a good person. I had all of the negative stories and, you know, negative psychology that, you know, I was a personal development coach's dream. Going from that, being humble, being vulnerable, putting my hand up, knowing that there was plenty of things that I couldn't do, but actually coming out the other side and acknowledging that there's so much further for me to go and that I'm never actually going to arrive, but learning how to wake up every morning and actually appreciate who I am as a person, appreciate my gifts, appreciate my shortcomings, appreciate my receding hairline, appreciate everything, what's in all, and just go, yeah, you know what, like, I'm here. Let's do something cool today. I think my biggest win is probably just best captured in learning, not achieving happiness, but learning and practicing how to be present and happy. It's a fucking big one. Way better than owning a Ferrari.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
I'll take the Ferrari too.
Dre, I've got a couple more, mate. You got any questions yourself?
No, I'm just like, once again, eternally monologuing essentially the love yourself part. I think it's, what's the point of doing any of it if it's not, if you don't love yourself. It comes down to the end of the day. There's there's the one person you really have to look after and it's yourself first and foremost. Huge mental health advocate too. So
yeah, I mean, everywhere you go, there you are, right? And I think and I think there's a big misconception around the whole love yourself movement, if you want to call it that. Love yourself doesn't mean you're perfect and you don't need to change it. Like, if I'm 40 kilos overweight and I'm dragging my feet and I don't know how to dress and I haven't showered in days, like, I could love myself,
it's the
all
grave.
day, every day. I'm still overweight. I still smell like shit. I still don't look presentable at all. So love yourself doesn't mean don't work on yourself or don't grow on yourself. Loving yourself is actually looking at your shortcomings, looking at the things that you're great at, being a human being and acknowledging that you have the potential to change, and then doing something about it. Loving yourself doesn't mean, you never have to try, or, everything should just come to you. That's not loving yourself. That's arrogance. And I think that's the best part. But the flip side of that is not loving yourself and constantly working to improve yourself, thinking that one day you'll attain something that will make you love yourself. Because, as we mentioned before, like, at least in my experience, there is nothing that you think you will achieve that will make you feel the way that you want to feel that you can't feel and embody right now. Doesn't mean it's easy, but there's certainly nothing external that will fill the void internally.
Love that. Eric, you got any, mate, you got any favorite books yourself?
Oof, mate, I've got my library over there. I've probably got around 200 books, and I've got about another 300 books on Audible.
Nice.
God, a lot of great books. For men specifically, there's a phenomenal book by David Dieter called The Way of the Superior Man. Women can obviously read it too, but it's specifically written for men, and takes you on a bit of a journey into the masculine and what that means. The old Think and Grow Rich, love that book. Napoleon Hill, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck is an absolute cracker of a book, and has some great research behind it as well. There's a phenomenal book that I read a couple of months ago, called The Courage to Be Disliked. I can't remember the author, but it's not the book you would expect it to be, but it's so much more. I feel like I should have some affiliate links.
Yes, mate. Yes.
But yeah, so no, I absolutely love reading. I feel like reading or listening is like a form of time travel. Like, I get to learn from people that are no longer alive, and learn from people that have been through situations I'll never been through. And like, I think that's the closest thing we have to being able to travel through time.
Yeah.
Anything about psychology, communication, humanity, history, I love all of that.
Have you, this one I just thought of now, mate, out of curiosity, have you got a morning and or evening routine that you've implemented along your way?
I actually don't.
Nice.
I know, flying in the I wake up, I hustle, I look at myself, I run 6 miles, I eat 6 raw eggs, and then I do 100 push-ups. I've been through multiple periods of different morning rituals, and up at 4:30, and especially when my self-confidence was really low when I was first starting on this personal and business journey. I used to wake up every morning. I used to go out in Upper Coomera on the Gold Coast. I used to go out to a little park in the suburbs, and I had a list of incantations and mantras that I would say, and I would put my headphones in, press the noise cancelling thing, and I would say them again and again and again. And I used to get people walking past me, walking their dogs at 4:35 in the morning, looking at me like some stranger talking to himself in the middle of a half-lit park, which was a good test of confidence as it was. But no, I've had different morning rituals and evening rituals. Again, coming back to that point of trust yourself to know the answer, I think it's very easy to say, oh, well, if I want to be successful, then I need to wake up at 5:30 a.m., you know. And I know, like we spoke about Gary, like Gary's really big on the whole, although he's tempered his message now, which I'm really pleased about. It's not how many fucking hours you sleep or don't sleep that will make you successful, right? Because it's like, well, if you need 8 hours of sleep and you're going to try and go off 6 hours sleep, well, you're only increasing your waking hours from 16 to 18, right? So what's that? That's like a 10%, 12, 15% increase. Like, why don't you focus on being really fucking efficient for the 16 hours before you start cutting into the 8 hours?
Yeah.
You know, like I think people focus on the wrong thing, but no, like I absolutely, you know, I exercise, I practice stillness. But I think also I'm much more focused on having fun than I am trying to, you know, bash myself into some morning routine. I've done that. And I'll do it again in the future. But right now, I'm actually really enjoying just waking up to alarm, rolling out of bed and making myself a coffee. That's my morning routine. Is caffeine.
I love it.
Yeah.
Giddy up. Mate, we're almost done here, but what do you believe, putting on the spot here, what's one thing people could implement now to make the biggest change?
I'm attentively listening, by the way. I've just turned the audio up.
Do an audit of all of the things in your life. Choose one that no longer serves you and stop doing it. Whether it's a relationship, a workplace, you know, a habit, and make it small. Make it so small that it almost seems pathetic, and do that. And just see what happens. I think a lot of people try to improve their situation by adding more. And I'm a big fan of actually stopping and taking away, you know, strip it back.
I love that.
I would challenge someone to do that and just not do anything else, not double down, and then stop 10 other things. Just literally do an audit, find one thing in your life that maybe it did serve you at a certain point and now it doesn't. Maybe it never served you and it's just been there because it's been there. And just release it and just see what happens.
I adore that, mate. Love that. Eric, is there any topics or subjects that that we may have missed that you want to cover?
Yeah, look, I wanted to talk about quantum physics, but I suppose we'll have to.
The internet's cutting out. What's happening?
Yeah, man, it's funny you say that. My wife's uncle is an intriguing character, a doctor, and very well-read individual. And I said to him that I asked if he had delved into the world of quantum physics, and I said it was something that really intrigued me. He's grabbed that and ran with it. I don't think he realizes that I've read nothing about it. It was just found it intriguing. So I think he's planning on diving into the world of quantum physics at some stage over the Christmas New Year break. So something to look forward to, that one.
If you want to start down that black hole, there's a documentary, old documentary now, it'd be early 2000s, I think, called What the Bleep. Start there, and that will open you up to all kinds of stuff. It'll wig you out.
I just wrote the bleep.
What the Bleep, BLEEP. Yeah.
It's quite a few podcasts. I think like astrophysics, especially, and with the increasing prevalence of like sci-fi becoming into pop culture, more and more people are getting interested in, I guess, what's out there. And there's so many literally mind-breaking facts that just like, yeah.
I love with the risk of diving deep into this
Don't
and
say
holding
stuff,
Dre up for another hour and a half. But I love the potential merge of religion and science, and they've always been positioned to be, you know, mortal enemies. But I don't think that needs to be the case. And I'm excited to see what the next 50 years, if I'm lucky enough to witness it, how I guess their relationship or how they evolve into coexisting, and what overlaps that will show. So that's one thing to look out for, kids.
I'm not going to say anything because if I do, we'll be here for
I know.
and I think Dre needs to go do something. But
I was like,
the podcast. Yeah.
We need to make a new podcast on that one, Nathan. We're going to come back to this topic at some stage because I just want to throw it out there. Space Crusade. It's all I want to say.
Well, let me watch What the Bleep first of all. But Eric, mate, you've dropped some heat. I'm very, very appreciative of your time. So thank you very much for joining us. Can you let our audience know? I'll chop this bit up. What do people do if they would like to work with you?
Yeah. So if you want to work with me, you can find me on Facebook. Eric Collins, Eric P. Collins, I think is my Facebook / URL name. Otherwise, they can go to seansewell.com, and we've currently got the Inner Circle under Sean's brand, and they can inquire there, and flick me a message, flick Sean a message. We have multiple conversations with everyone before we even think about working with them. So if you're in business and they want a bit of support, they can find me there, and we can have a chat.
Absolutely love it, mate. You're an absolute superstar. Thanks again for joining us. Dre, thank you for the extra hour that you didn't account for, brother, and apologies for making into your evening.
It's well worth it. And Eric, I appreciate the advice, and Nathan, the opportunity. So it's been well worth my time, and look forward to the next steps.
Amen. All right, Eric, we'll catch up again in the next 12 months, maybe. Thanks, mate. Enjoy your evening.
Appreciate it. Take care.